The temperature in your garden this week is not just uncomfortable for you. For the birds that depend on your garden, it is becoming dangerous, and most of what is harming them right now is invisible. You cannot see it happening from the kitchen window. There is no obvious sign, no dramatic moment. Just heat, building quietly, hour after hour, doing something to the birds in your garden that will not be undone by tomorrow's forecast. What you do in the next few hours may matter more than you realize. Welcome to Garden Bird Secrets. If you're new here, subscribe, because what you're about to learn will change every morning you spend in your garden. This week's heat is not ordinary summer weather. It sits at the extreme end of what British gardens are built to handle, and the birds in your garden did not evolve for it. In the next few minutes, you will learn what heat like this actually does to a bird's body, why the food your birds depend on is quietly disappearing, and what you can do, starting tonight, to change what happens next. Stay until the end, because the last point is the one most garden owners get wrong without ever knowing it. A bird's body works differently from yours in heat. You sweat. A bird cannot. It has no sweat glands at all, and its entire body is covered in insulating feathers designed to hold warmth in, which becomes a serious problem when the air itself is doing the same job the feathers are meant to do. To lose heat, a bird must pant or flutter the muscles around its throat, a behavior called gular fluttering. Both use energy, both use water, and a small bird's body heats and cools far faster than yours, simply because it is small. The smaller the body, the faster the internal temperature moves toward whatever the air around it is doing. In your garden, this means the blue tit at your feeder is working constantly just to stay stable, even while it looks like it is doing nothing at all. It is not resting, it is regulating, and it has been doing that since well before you woke up this morning. That is only the first cost of this heat. The second is harder to see, and it is happening to something your birds cannot survive without. Heat like this does not only affect birds directly, it affects what they eat. Caterpillars and soil-dwelling insects, the primary food source for a blue tit feeding chicks, die back sharply in extreme heat and dry soil because the plants they depend on lose moisture and the ground becomes too hard for larvae to survive in. Research following the 2022 UK heatwave, drawing on nest box data collected through the BTO's Nest Record scheme, documented a measurable rise in chick mortality in gardens across the country during the hottest weeks, not from the heat itself, but from parent birds returning to the nest with less food again and again, because there was simply less food to find. In your garden, this means a nest box that looked completely normal from the outside, parents flying in and out, apparently coping, may have chicks going hungry in a way you would never see from where you are standing. The birds are not failing. The garden underneath them is running out. Hunger like this is easy to miss because nothing about it looks urgent from a distance. There is something else in your garden right now that looks just as fine from where you're standing, and it is not. Water disappears in heat far faster than most garden owners expect. A shallow bird bath in direct sun can lose a significant portion of its depth to evaporation within a single afternoon, and the water that remains warms quickly, which matters because bacteria multiply far faster in warm standing water than in cool. The RSPB's Summer Emergency Guidance recommends changing garden water sources roughly every 2 hours during a heat wave, not because the water looks dirty, but because at that temperature it already is. In your garden, this means the bird bath you filled this morning may now be doing very little for the birds relying on it, and every bird that visits an unchanged bowl by mid-afternoon is drinking water that is working against it, not for it. This is the point most people miss. It is not the absence of water that causes harm, it is water that has quietly stopped being safe. And it isn't only the water bowl that behaves differently in heat like this. The feeder does too. Bird feeders placed in direct sunlight face a problem that has nothing to do with running out of food. Fat-based products, suet, fat balls, and similar feeder blocks soften and turn rancid in prolonged heat, while seed left in warm, humid conditions is vulnerable to mold developing inside the feeder itself, often without any visible change from the outside. Neither of these is the fault of the food you bought. Both are the fault of where it has been sitting since this morning. In your garden, this means the feeder you filled with good intentions may now be offering something closer to a health risk than a meal. Moving it into shade takes a few minutes. Leaving it where it is costs nothing today, and something later. Stay with me, because this next part changes everything. Once you know what to look for, you will never look at your garden in heat like this the same way again. There is a way to know, without any equipment, whether the birds in your garden are struggling with this heat. Watch for a bird standing with its wings held slightly away from its body, feathers loosened rather than sleek, beak open, breathing visibly faster than normal. This is not distress in the way a collision or an attack would be distress. It is quieter than that, a bird doing everything it can, in plain view, to survive an afternoon that was never built for it. I want to be honest with you about something. None of what has been described in this video requires anything expensive or complicated. Move the feeder into shade tonight. Refresh the water source before you go to bed and again in the morning. That is the entire list. It will not undo what this heat has already done today, but it changes what tomorrow looks like for the birds standing in your garden right now, waiting for the temperature to turn. If you've noticed any of this in your own garden this week, the panting, the empty feeder, the bird bath no one is touching, you already knew something before you had the words for it. Tell me in the comments. I read every single one. These are the stories I carry with me longest. I'll see you in the garden.